Hi, everybody. Welcome to this month's learning series. We're so happy to have you here today. We've got a great topic in front of us today, all focused on Treesilience, a really awesome program focused on how do we remove hazard trees on private property and make our trees or our communities more equitable and safer for everyone who lives there. So I'll cover that more in just a little bit here, but I want to get us kicked off right away because we've got a big full agenda in front of us. So as we get started here, I want to thank our sponsor of the learning series, Bartlett Tree Experts. Together with Bartlett, we share the goal of raising the bar of urban forestry and arboriculture for people across the country and globe. And so we thank Bartlett for their ongoing support of this learning series and the organization as a whole. And we have many other sponsors who help make UCFS possible, including our members. We really appreciate our members who make sure that we are able to do more of our work every single day. As we get started here, I'm going to go through an agenda, welcome and introductions. We'll hear from a really awesome panel of Rebecca, Kelly, Taylor, Amanda, and Jalen, who again are going to cover Treesilience and the work they're doing across Missouri, Illinois, and Louisiana, and talking about strategies to support private property tree care that complement municipal efforts, how you support community members' efforts to identify dead or high-risk trees, and opportunities to plant new trees. And how do we do that all with an equity focus to address hazard trees in our communities? We'll have time for Q&A at the end, and then we'll have a CEU forum. And I am realizing I always do this. I launch right in, and I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Leslie Burkus. I'm the Executive Director of the Urban and Community Forestry Society. Really happy again to have you here today. And since I just introduced myself, please do that for yourself. Please drop your name and where you're from in the chat. We love to see where everyone is coming in from. This webinar is being recorded, and we will share it with you afterwards, and we'll post it to our YouTube channel as well. And then you all are on mute at the end. We could bring you off mute, or you can feel free to use the Q&A function, the little button at the top of your screen, or use chat to put in questions that you might have. So again, we've got a big agenda. I'm going to try and talk really fast. And if you're not familiar with the Urban and Community Forestry Society, our job is to build the confidence, competence, and camaraderie of all professionals who manage trees and forests to create and sustain more livable communities. But I'm going to break that down a lot more and just say we are the professional membership home for the people who make or support a daily tree decision. If you decide who, what, where, when, or how a tree goes in the ground, you should be part of this membership society. Just like doctors, lawyers, nurses have membership societies that make them better at their jobs, more confident in the work they do, and speak on their behalf, that is what this association and society is here for. And we want to make you the best you can be and support you along your journey. So if you're not part of the society, we really hope that you'll join us. We have a lot of things that we offer our members and friends, including our City Trees publication, Arborist Exchange, a mentorship program. In November, we have our annual conference in Henderson, Nevada. We hope that you'll sign up for that. Registration is open. In just a few short weeks, we're opening up applications for the Municipal Forestry Institute. That's how you become a leader within urban forestry. How do you help connect with others? How do you network across this big, vast people who are doing this work like you? And we'll be announcing our very special location. So pack your sunblock for that location, and you'll find out on August 1. Our accreditation program, which will put the stamp of approval on urban forestry programs across the country and globe, is launching late 2026. We have our monthly learning series. We have all sorts of things coming your way. We're busy around here, but it's all in service to you to help you be your most confident in your tree making decisions. Coming up in our educational series, next month is a National Tree Canopy Assessment Tool webinar. Yet to be posted, but coming very soon on our events page, is a species diversity webinar in September, a youth engagement discussion panel in October. How do you level up your leadership as a young professional, as imagining 1 year on the job? That will be our Career Compass in October, the conference in November, and then in December, we'll wrap up our year with tree ordinances. So make sure you keep your eye on our events calendar and sign up for our next webinars. And finally, again, if you are a member of Urban Community Forestry Society, we really appreciate you. You who make this work possible. The more our membership grows, the more our impact grows. So if you are not a member, we hope that you'll join when the time is right. And with that, Rebecca, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Rebecca, the Partnership Manager for Forest Relief of Missouri and the National Treesilience Representative. Rebecca, are you ready to go?
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So we are here today to talk about Treesilience. You may be tempted to read that as Treesilience, but at its core, it's about resilience. Treesilience. The tagline is growing a resilient canopy by leveling the planting field. Treesilience is a national initiative designed to improve tree canopy by prioritizing investments in historically underserved communities. In urban forestry, we know that there are 3 phases of reforestation: planning, installation, and long-term maintenance. Most of us in this field tend to focus on phase 2, that installation and establishment period. But what makes Treesilience unique is that it advocates for funding for all 3 phases, recognizing that the barriers to healthy canopy include standing dead trees, among other things. Treesilience has been designed to serve under-resourced communities where canopy coverage is low and trees have been historically neglected. So yes, part of Treesilience is tree removals, but it is so much more, and it can be implemented uniquely based on your community's needs. At the outset, there are 3 main Treesilience components: tree maintenance, tree replacement, and workforce development. However, this third piece we realized is not always achievable in every city. Instead, we recognized a need for incorporating long-term maintenance through stewardship and education, while there are other evolving program components in different cities. Tree removal and tree maintenance and tree replacement are the hooks that get people excited. This creates immediate impact in a community. But we recognize that for long-term, meaningful change, we have to help them to be successful. Treesilience has a national network, and it can work in so many cities across the country, and it shows up differently in each one. It launched in Chicago in 2020, and subsequently in 2021, the pilot launched in St. Louis. In the network, you can see we have many cities who come together on a monthly basis to discuss the successes and the stumbling blocks within our community's desire to implement Treesilience. And there's been a lot of talk around funding these days. And many of you may actually be implementing Treesilience in your own communities right now. You're just not calling it Treesilience. But if you are addressing mature tree maintenance in vulnerable communities, you are in essence practicing Treesilience. My colleagues and partners across the country will be sharing their examples momentarily. And our hope is that this presentation inspires you to continue in this important work. And we invite you to join us. But before I turn it over, I want to take a moment to share about some of the awards that Treesilience has been receiving. Last year at the Partners Conference, the UCFS Legacy Project of the Year Award was awarded to Treesilience. And this spring in St. Louis, Treesilience received Demonstrating Innovative Solutions Award through Focus St. Louis. These awards are a testament to the impact that Treesilience is making in our communities and hopefully generating interest and future funding opportunities. And now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Kelly Hicks Holloway, Environmental Justice Lead for Forestry Lead.
Thank you for that introduction, Rebecca. Hello, everyone. I am Kelly Hicks Holloway. I lead the Treesilience program in St. Louis, Missouri. I am also an MFI alum. Go MFI. So I'm going to go ahead and get my presentation started. All right. So, building urban canopy through restorative justice and community power. That is pretty much what St. Louis has focused on as we implement our Treesilience program. Um, the way that we do that is we ask the question, how do you build tree advocates? Um, Building tree advocates was a deliverable in our grant, and every component of our program was designed to build and measure tree advocates. I'll start with private property and tree programs. Private property tree program. So, repairing decades of divestment by prioritizing communities with the greatest needs and focusing on building healthy community canopy by growing tree advocates. That's our main objective. And how do we make that a priority? How do we prioritize that? And what does that actually mean? So what we did is we turned our program into a community commitment. And the way that we did that is by introducing our applicants to an orientation to introduce the goals, expectations, and the timeline that allows applicants to know that this is not just a service, but a community program that they are the stakeholders of. Our timeline shows that we have a 2-year commitment, and it ends with a final tree assessment of their recently planted trees on their own private properties. Okay, so in St. Louis, we recently had a tornado on May 16th, and that tornado ravished the prioritized areas that we had been focusing our work on. Because of that, we were kind of figuring out what we needed to do next. And what we realized is our stakeholders from the prior year really needed our attention. Anyway, if you can see to the on this, the prioritized area seems really small, but it's a very large community. Some of the testimonies that we received after the tornado were very encouraging and empowering. And I'll just read one to keep it pretty brief. Veronica states, we just cleared our backyard of dead and dying trees through Treesilience. Got a tree down that posed a major threat, and I'm certain it helped us to minimize the damage to our home. We are forever grateful to Davy Tree and all the hardworking folks at Forestry Relief for removing the tree that we feared most just weeks prior to the tornado. I'm a Treesilience fan, so I look forward to continuing to work with your team in whatever capacity we can. We're going to move forward to private and community tree planting projects. During the initial pilot, we planted trees at a 2-to-1 ratio. 1 tree pruned or removed for 2 trees planted. Realizing this was not the most beneficial for the stakeholders due to limited yard space, fear of failure stakeholders expressed regarding planting trees, and the realization that many stakeholders had more than 1 tree that needed to be addressed. I'm sorry. So we agreed on a dollar amount that would offer more help and create space for more trees to be planted. We also engage in community plantings in spaces like urban forums and public parks. So the photos on the left just show, the first photo is Fairground Park, where we planted several trees, including some cherry blossoms. And Fairground Park actually was hit really hard during that tornado. So we've been doing more plantings and figuring out a way to prioritize getting more trees in the ground since that tornado. The second photo is the street line of a farm called Ujima Farms, which we have a recent partnership that we are enjoying, planting some fruiting trees and nut-bearing trees. Moving forward to community-centered stewardship. In order to build capacity and address the fear of failure, some of our stakeholders expressed regarding planting and maintaining their new trees through the program, we host a tree keepers course that prepares the stakeholders for the stewardship required to keep their trees healthy. We also offer a tree captain stipend program that will be launching this fall, which will give our stakeholders an opportunity to participate in receiving payment for maintaining more trees in their community so they can help out their neighbors if their neighbor isn't capable due to age or another type of limited capacity. They will help to water, maintain the trees through mulch, and even possibly pruning the trees. So the program has grown and we're excited about this new launch. Our tree advocates now have access to forest relief as well. So in addition to the workshop, the stipend program, they have access to us for all of their needs as it relates to our actual program. These are our stakeholders, and these are a few of our tree advocates. And it's just a joy to engage in this program with them. Restorative justice for equitable urban canopy. This is a big part of our program. Dr. Robert Bullard, who is also a professor and co-author of Race, Place, and Environmental Justice after Hurricane Katrina, is also known as the father of environmental justice. When I begin talking about environmental justice and why we're doing our work, I love to start by his quote. So if you'd like to take a moment or a screenshot, please do. Also, feel free to Google Dr. Robert Bullard. His work is amazing and extremely inspiring and empowering. St. Louis has a history of redlining as all other major cities. And in this map, you can see the strong correlation between redlining and urban tree canopy. We won't go all the way into that, but this is why we do the work. It's because of the years of divestment. Feel free to look deeper into redlining and how it relates to urban tree canopy. To bring the focus to trauma caused by environmental injustices, Go Deeper was created. Go Deeper is a retreat established, Go Deeper is a retreat established to address these environmental injustices. We co-created a curriculum with Empower Institute, a Black Healers Collective in our city. And our retreat focuses on relationships between communities and organizations like Forest Relief, addressing the needs of our community, resolving conflicts through restorative practices, and tree and ancestral trauma. There's a lot of things that people have an idea about why people don't take trees or have an adverse reaction to having trees in their property. And what we engage in what that actually means and how to address it and reimagining new relationships with our environment. Dr. Kenny, Black Faces, White Spaces, says, a tree in the woods can signify shade and spiritual oneness and the end of life so brutally taken. Carolyn Finney wrote a book, Black Faces and White Spaces, that has changed the way personally I view our built up environment around us and how we need to re-engage and how important it is for us to re-engage. I'll move forward to our outcomes. Our outcomes were created through surveys, doing some of our own research. We are creating an upcoming national toolkit. We count the number of trees that we've planted, the advocates that has grown during our program since its inception in 2021. And our impact numbers have just been amazing to show us that our program works. And in St. Louis, we have developed a program that the community feels empowered and encouraged to participate with. So what we learned is building community relationship is key in order to build tree advocates. Capacity building and relationship building is key. We cannot continue to enter into areas that have been disenfranchised and only offer solutions. We have to engage and create space for the community members to feel heard, seen, and valued. And this is what St. Louis's Treesilience program has been implementing. I appreciate you all listening to me today. Thank you. You can jot down any of my information, take a screenshot. And next we have Taylor Neff, Community Forester of Missouri Department of Conservation in Kansas City.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, someone holler if you can't see it, but all right. Yeah, my name is Taylor and I'm a community forester for the Missouri Department of Conservation and I serve the Kansas City region. Our mission as an agency is to protect fish, forests, and wildlife and also connect people with nature. And that includes growing and protecting our urban forests. So I'm going to attempt to explain how our community forestry program is sustained and how Treesilience supports our mission as a state agency and highlight some of the partners that we have here in Kansas City. So the department was established in 1937 through Missouri residents advocating to restore fish, forests, and wildlife populations. And at first, the agency was sustained through hunting and fishing permits. But in 76, this is an important part, is why I highlighted it. The design for conservation was passed, which set aside an 1/8 of 1% sales tax, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it accounts for over 60% of the department's revenue altogether. And it makes it so community forestry here is 90% state funded and only 10% federally funded. So that's why our program isn't imperiled by federal funding cuts. So I'm just really grateful for this. And I wish that all states could adopt the same model. And then the last note here is just that in the past 5 years, although we've been doing community forestry for a long time, community forestry and conservation have been integrated into our strategic plans as a department. And here's just a little bit more about Missouri, but the reason that that is the case is because we want to more equitably serve all Missourians in the state, and 70% live in urban areas. And that doesn't include like the rural areas that are like urbanized or peri-urban. What that looks like is we have a comprehensive conservation strategy. So they took the wildlife action plan and the forest action plan and all of these things and put them together, including community conservation forestry there at the bottom. So on the right here, each of the sections have desired future conditions, and these are the ones that are relevant for Treesilience and what we use to apply for Treesilience funding. So essentially just to help promote healthy urban areas and natural spaces. And we don't do anything in a silo here. You know, we partner with a lot of amazing organizations like the Kelly, who you just heard from, because we can't do it all ourselves. So boots on the ground, and Treesilience is no exception. I'll talk about some partners more in a second. So what do we do with some of that funding that I talked about? So we do have cooperative agreements with organizations like Heartland Tree Alliance, Forest Relief. This is kind of like annual agreements to help support their staff and community engagement. We also have forestry cost share for private landowners. And then I administer our community forestry cost share, which can be used on publicly accessible land. In Kansas City is a pretty well-funded parks department here for maintenance of trees on public land in the right-of-way, but we can't use any of these sources for private property for Treesilience. So special projects have to come from federal programs. So our state forester did apply for IRA funds a few years ago to expand Treesilience after they had that successful pilot in St. Louis between Relief and the Nature Conservancy and Beyond Housing and Davy. And here's just a snapshot of the deliverables and the timeline that were proposed initially. And we are in year 2. And yeah, you just heard from Rebecca and Kelly, and they're doing such a good job. And they've been so supportive of us in Kansas City already. So grateful for them. Okay, and the proposal was intended to support tree maintenance, and that includes dead ash trees and invasive trees. And we were hit really hard by EAB. We're about 17 years in after our first detection in the state. And Kansas City has a lot of ash trees and yeah, 400,000 alone on private property. So we have a high need for extra support. And like I said, there's kind of a gap. The Parks Department does a great job planting and maintaining trees in the right of way. And MDC can provide cost share for maintenance and removals and planting on publicly accessible land. But for those right inside of the easement, a lot of our neighborhoods look like this. So we needed Treesilience. So luckily, the Nature Conservancy offered some mini grants last year, and we were able to come together with partners and utilize $10,000 to do a little pilot in one of our priority neighborhoods here. We removed 8 trees. Some of the partners that are instrumental, Center for Neighborhoods, they have environmental stewards, and they are assessing greenness of their communities and advocating for improvements and connecting neighbors to resources like resources for trees. Here's a picture from Heartland Tree Alliance, which I'll talk about in a minute. But all those little dots are where trees have been planted historically, where people are volunteering to steward new trees in their neighborhood. And as you can see on the east side of the city, on the red line side, they're referred to as the quality of life improvement districts. And life expectancy is 15 years less on average in these zip codes. And this is where Center for Neighborhood stewards work and engage community. And since Heartland Tree Alliance has partnered with them, the amount of trees planted in this zone has doubled, essentially. Eastwood Hills was a neighborhood where we did the pilot, and we've been partnering with them for years, actually. There was a lot of ash trees that were removed from the city, and Heartland Tree Alliance worked with them to do an initial planting, but a lot of people were still hesitant because of those trees that were left inside on private property. Community Capital Fund was essential in this project. They administered all of the agreements between partners and provided the funding to the tree care company up front. And here's just a screenshot of the request for bids that they had put out and where the trees were in Eastwood Hills. And of course, Heartland Tree Alliance, they've been around for more than 20 years after we had a really big ice storm in Kansas City. And they're a program that's hosted by the nonprofit Bridging the Gap. They do a lot of things, including tree planting and tree giveaways and Tree Core, which is their workforce development program. And they make my job a lot easier. I can't do community forestry alone in Kansas City. So they do a lot of good things. And I think Kathy, shout out, is on the call from Heartland Tree Alliance. So you can hit her up if you have questions. And then the workforce development component was provided by them because they already have a pre-apprenticeship. So that's a crucial part of the Treesilience model. So their participants were able to come out and kind of shadow the project, work with me, talk about tree risk and diversity and emerald ash for pests and disease, things like that. Here's a picture of the replanting, one of the replantings that was done with one of the program participants and kind of the timeline. So from the time we requested the funds in March, and then everything was completed and replanted by November of the same year. What's next? HTA is going to continue to do their thing in partnership with us and Casey Parks. And last May, we actually requested more funding from our state forester. And then last month, they were able to allocate about $90,000 to Heartland Tree Alliance to continue Treesilience over the next 3 years. So that's really exciting and really grateful for all of the support coming from Forest Relief and excited to keep working with Kelly. And that is all. There's a really cool video that we put together about our pilot. You can find that on the Treesilience website. Thank you. I am going to kick it now to Amanda, who's the Community Forest Conservation Coordinator for the Nature Conservancy, representing Louisiana Treesilience program.
Thanks, Taylor. Happy to be here. I am in Baton Rouge, but I actually have a program that actually works throughout South Louisiana. If y'all can't see my screen, please somebody holler. But yeah, I'm going to jump right into it. So you heard Rebecca, and she had mentioned that each program is a little bit different. And our program is probably the least similar from the ones that you've heard about, in that we work throughout South Louisiana at the moment. We're actually hoping to expand into the entire state in the future. And let me get into this. So we'll go over a little bit of the overview of the program. The other thing that's different about us is that we work with predominantly public trees. So we don't do tree removal or maintenance on private property. And then this is our first year, so we're relatively new to the Treesilience program. I'm with the Nature Conservancy, and in Louisiana, we have not typically done a lot of urban forestry, and so this is kind of our first real foray into that outside of kind of large-scale forestry preservation and conservation. So we're learning a lot, and I'll share some of that with y'all. This is just a little bit of a background because my funding that I currently have for the program is disaster recovery related. And so these are 4 hurricanes that took place in South Louisiana in 2020 and 2021. And it's just to show that our storms are getting worse. So they are coming in with higher wind speeds. 2 of the 4 storms in 2020 and 2021 had record winds, 150 mile an hour winds or greater, and were Category 4 storms. And so they're coming in with more intensity, they're lingering over land longer, and they're coming inland a lot further. And ultimately, that is what spurred our funding with the Forest Service. So those 4 hurricane areas hit 22 parishes in South Louisiana. And so that's another way that we're a little bit different, is that we cover a pretty wide range. So we have 22 parishes that are eligible, and I'll show you the map in a second, but we've already done several projects across the state. So I'm covering a pretty wide area, which can be really great because we're, making a large impact over a large area, but at the same time, it also requires a lot of staff time to kind of cover that space and actually make sure that everyone is aware of the opportunities that we have available. We do have a partnership with state parks as well. So we have done some work in our local state parks, but majority of the funding is going to be focused on public trees in local municipalities. And so in addition to restoring, hurricane damage, we wanted to make sure that the projects came from the community. So we have a competitive application process, which I'll talk a little bit about, but ultimately these projects need to be in urban areas because it came from urban forestry with the Forest Service. And we have like a $30,000 minimum project amount. But ultimately it's the community that is deciding what they need the most. And then we ultimately just take care of it for them if their project is chosen. So these are some of the things that projects can include. I think you heard a little bit about this with Rebecca, and that Treesilience is trying to hit whatever of those 3 stages. And so our funding can cover any of that. So if a community comes to us and they don't even really know what they need, but they know they need something, then we'll do a tree inventory or canopy assessment, or maybe they have some data, but they just need a plan written and have like a better understanding of the maintenance needs that their mature canopy has. Right now, I have both of those taking place in Terrebonne Parish. If anyone's familiar with Louisiana, where we're doing a canopy assessment followed by a plan rewrite. But then additionally, we also do a lot of physical work with removing dead or hazardous trees. We have a maintenance project taking place right now in New Orleans in Lakeview. And then we can also plant trees and create storm buffers that way. And obviously the focus is on native resilient trees moving forward. So we're managing the program through these cooperative agreements of assistance with public entities, and a majority of them are parishes or city leaders that are applying, but we've also had some churches. We have a nonprofit neighborhood association, technically HOAs, schools, if they have any kind of public area on them, qualify with what we're kind of defining as our public trees. And then we have our state park work. So here's just kind of showing, these are the 22 parishes that are eligible. You'll see I'm in Baton Rouge, which is East Baton Rouge Parish, and it's not even included in this. So we actually aren't doing any work where I live. But this shows some of the spread of our projects. So the teal projects are ones that we've already completed. We've done work on tribal lands with the Coshada, which is one of our federally recognized tribes in the state. And then we've done the city of Alexandria, the city of DeRidder, and the city of Slidell. And then the pink projects are ones that are in progress. So we're working with 2 parishes, which is Terrebonne and St. Bernard. And then we have that Lakeview maintenance project in the city of New Orleans taking place. And the yellow stars are showing where our state park work is being done. So the one thing that is really convenient about the way that the program is set up is that it does not require any administrative oversight from the municipality or the partner once the project has been chosen. So I handle all of the contracting essentially after they apply and we get the CAA signed. TNC does all of the contracting and the setting up, and it's very time consuming on my part, but ultimately alleviates some of that for the smaller communities that we worked with, which I'll talk about that a little bit more. This is just kind of a brief overview of some of the things that we've accomplished in the last year. So we launched our application in May of 2024. I had to think about that for a second. And since then, we've had 6 different projects, as I mentioned. We are able to hit pretty large populations because this is kind of a statewide program that goes across South Louisiana. This is a very similar program to what like a state forestry program would probably do. And we were actually approached by our state forester to manage the program because they just didn't have the staffing capacity to do it. So yeah, we've got a lot of contracts. You can see in order to do those 6 projects, it took 9 contracts, and we are only about halfway through spending the funds so far. So we have till the rest of this year. But a couple of things that, you know, when you're looking at, should you work with public trees, it works for us because TNC, you know, is kind of a low risk organization. And so ultimately we're able to have like a single agreement with a property owner. And they tell us, you know, that we can do the contracts on their property opposed to working with a lot of different private property owners. We obviously, you can see by the population impacts that we have, we're impacting a lot of communities. But at the same time, those can be negatives because it's a lot less grassroots and community driven. You know, I am the only person working this funding in this program. So there's limitations in how much boots on the ground I can do. And so it's really heavy on the administrative side, but it's a lot less of me going door to door and doing public outreach. So, you know, each of those things is going to have its positives and negatives depending on the resources that you have. What I have found is, you know, some communities don't even know what they need in order to apply. And so, you know, that is something that we're kind of aware of and that will mold our program into the future. We try to stay local and use local contractors as much as possible. And we're starting to be a little bit choosier about our partners because we have run into some issues where people are biting off a little bit more than they can chew. So we have to be kind of conscious of that. And just, you know, if you are thinking about a program like this or looking for funding, just, you know, the more you know about your community and how you can help prepare, the better. and being able to adapt your program or your needs to what is currently available, since there's probably going to be some restrictions in funding for the next few years, and balancing, how much staffing requirements are needed, whether that's administrative or in the field, and kind of what works best for you. So with that, here's some of my contact information if anyone has any questions, and I am going to pass it over to my colleague. Let me stop sharing. Jalen Webb. She's with Amani Health, Green Health Advocate Program Coordinator with Amani Village in Chicago, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about urban forestry workforce development in Chicago.
Hello, everyone. Give me a brief moment while I go ahead and share my screen. If everybody is able to see my screen, I'm going to go ahead and proceed. My name is Jalen Webb. I am the program coordinator for the Amani Green Health Advocate Program. We are focused on advocating for a healthy green village at Amani. I will be going ahead into our mission. Amani Village, which is a subsidiary of Trinity United Church of Christ, is a visionary non-for-profit. We are located on the far south side of Chicago. We are guided by the mission to build a sustainable, eco-friendly, intergenerational community, which essentially just means that we're committed to having a self-sustaining neighborhood grounded in the values of a lifelong education, holistic health, and economic development. With that, I will go into the Treesilience in Chicago. I feel like I would be remiss without telling you all the details of what it is and the community that we serve in Chicago. We are a demographic made heavily of African Americans with a smaller population of whites and Hispanics. With that, we have to understand that in our community, we are heavily surrounded by what we call a toxic donut. This toxic donut essentially defines that we are geographically located on sides of a expressway, surrounded by factories, in addition to just being pollution in any term of the word, air, water, all of that is continuing to feed into our communities and the residents' lives, which is why we go ahead and looked at the mission that Treesilience through the Nature Conservancy is providing. When we looked at Treesilience, we recognized that this just falls hand in hand with the mission that we have, while being able to participate in the Treesilience program, as Marika had previously stated, starting in 2020. We have been especially impacted by this work because we recognize that our communities are disproportionately impacted by the urban heat island effect. They have one of the most high rates of heat, concrete, and infrastructures without a lot of ways in which to mitigate that, and green spaces and an urban canopy. They are one of the ones that are also currently suffering with a repeat or repetitory issue of chronic health issues in terms of respiratory conditions like asthma. As a result, we saw that the Treesilience program providing an increase in tree canopy and green infrastructure for our neighborhoods wasn't just something that includes beautification, but is a vital strategy for reducing heat, improving air quality, and overall creating a healthier environment for generations to come. Through our partnership, we have not only been able to restore our land cover in terms of tree, but we've also been able to create an equitable health and opportunity for members on our far south side of Chicago. And with that, when I talk about our communities, we're representing the communities of Pullman, Washington Heights, Pullman, in addition to being able to conclude Avalon Park and a multitude of others. But that just has us saying that we're on the far south side of Chicago with a number of residents in that community. To give you again the history of Treesilience in Chicago, it was piloted in 2020. We recognized that with this tree canopy, we saw a decline in tree coverage due to the emerald ash borer. And as a result, we went ahead and tied in what can we do for our community by having our community be active participants in that solution. So we targeted our vocal communities, including those that are community leaders, youth, and people who are advocating for justice as being a pivotal role in that workforce development. This goes back to what I initially introduced as the Amani Green Health Advocate Program. What is IGHA? It is a comprehensive job training and professional development internship for young adults. And when I say young adults, they start as early as 18, and we've had people come into our program around the ages of 30. We reach them at the state in their life where they're trying to go ahead and emerge in these fields of conservation or community health. And we train them for 6 months, providing them with the opportunity to explore career paths in community health or conservation while gaining hands-on experience and building a competitive skill set. So what does that look like? In the field work, we provide interns with an engaging, robust series of professional development workshops where they're doing mock training, they're doing resume building, LinkedIn profiles, AP-style investigative journalism. The things that we know are important when you're calling yourself a professional in the field that I'm sure we all wish we had when we were starting off as our early professional selves. And so we want to make sure that we're equipping them with the skill sets they need, not only to survive, but thrive. We imagine that the advocates in this program are not just working to be a part of the organizations that we partner with, but not just as an employee, but then as an employer. We want them to go ahead and empower their community, representing where they came from with a passion and vigor and the skill sets that we provide them to thrive. So to give you an overview of what that looks like, we partner with organizations including the Nature Conservancy and Advocate Healthcare, which is a health group majorly dominating in Chicago area. They provide us with the understanding of what it looks like to do community health. And we also understand that it is a healthy landscape that we are providing. So with that healthy landscape, we provide a green infrastructure stewardship and monitoring of trees. They provide a healthy community with the social determinants of health, health living skills, and access to medical services. Those social determinants of health continue to intersect in understanding that the environment goes hand in hand with community health. And lastly, it's with the healthy faith. Members in our residence also understand that a faith-led aspect to a program allows them to have a more fostering understanding of trust and built on relationship of how we can go ahead into those communities and provide our services. Overall, leading to the goals of our program with the IGHA, we focus on the connection between community health and conservation. Our goals are focused on interested youth and conservation or community health while guiding them and conducting their day-to-day tasks to show them what it looks like to be a professional in that field. So this has us looking at what the tasks include. That means that for our conservation advocates, they are able to identify and assess the health of trees in our neighborhood. They're able to recruit and educate residents on free tree services and tree replacement programs that we have through the Treesilience program. We also plant trees for people on their private property. After we plant trees for people on their private property, we come back in the 2 following years to provide tree care maintenance. With that maintenance, we come back and do a watering, a weeding, and a remulching of that area to show that we are not only going ahead and putting a tree and patting ourselves on the back at the end of the day for saying we increased the tree canopy, but ensuring the longevity of that program and fostering a continuous community engagement partnership with the resident who receives that tree. And then lastly, we guide and educate our new tree owners on the proper tree care. So as we continue to revisit, we're telling them about the current conditions of their tree and what we can do to better that in any way. This again ties back into the workforce development. So I would like to share some of the wonderful outcomes that we've had through our program for a few of the years that we've had it. We've been able to successfully, and this is for any given year that we've been able to have our advocates in the program, has been able to, within 1 week of being able to provide their food pharmacy services, and that's through the community health advocates, and they call pharmacy by FARMACY, a fun play on words where they provide free nutritious meals for people in the advocate healthcare system to their patients. So a doctor will prescribe a patient to eat healthier instead of medication. And with that, they're able to reach 500 patients in one given day. We've been able to survey 3,000 plus trees. We've been able to do tree care for 200 plus trees, close to 300 in 1 year, in addition to doing tree health care checks for 3,000 trees and a pest detection for another 3,000 plus trees. I would like to play this brief video that gives you a testimonial of one of our advocates that were in the program. Let me know if you can hear it. It should.
Jalen, it's not playing on our end if it is on yours.
Oh, sorry about that, good folks.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and just move on past that. It was essentially a testimonial that we had from one of our advocates. In a previous year, we actually got a recording through PBS to provide a testimony of our program. They are currently, one of the video shows is them doing community engagement, where they were able to talk about the stories of what they hear residents here, sharing their stories of the relationship with trees. And they're talking about raccoons getting into my house, or the roots breaking up my pipes. And so that we go ahead and we have this ongoing conversation where we talk about a lot of the benefits that those trees provide in terms of the heating and cooling effects that it provides in the colder and hotter months, in addition to a lot of the benefits that it provides, being able to have a nice shade spot and encouraging a community engagement in the outdoors. With a further analysis into what it looks like for the workforce development, we have workshops. With these workshops, we go ahead and educate people about the benefits of trees, on their environmental, social, and economic impacts, while engaging communities through hands-on tree planting activities. So we not only do workshops where we're tabling, we're also actually encouraging people to join us on this tree planting journey, whether that be on their private property, at their school, or at their church. We're ready to meet them wherever they're at. In addition to that, we give our advocates their certifications that they can carry on throughout the program and add to their resume. These certifications include your basic forestry certification, your basic chainsaw operation certification, a wildland firefighter certification. They receive certifications in first aid, CPR, AED, in addition to a multitude of others. And I can list and list and list, and the list goes on and on. But we want to make sure that after they leave this program, they have something in terms of their skill sets that they have, and in addition to their resume skill sets that they can list. The last thing is that we do volunteer stewardship, where we come out and we aid our extra hands and our extra services and our knowledge to partner with other organizations, grassroots and other department organizations, to provide them with the tree services of tree maintenance as well. So this picture shows you a multitude of like that testimony of what we've been able to do, whether that is the tree monitoring that we've done out on city trees. We've been able to go ahead and educate youth from like as young as, what you can see, some little kids and third and fourth graders, all the way up to teenagers, all the way up to adults, in addition to being able to go back and monitor those three trees, CPR training, and doing that maintenance, as I had previously stated. Finding that connection, and I just really want to tie this together. We recognize that through the advocates, we see that time and time again, we understand that the relationship between a healthy environment, it includes being a healthy resident, and a healthy resident shows you that the environment is healthy. That is a true testimonial to the work that we're doing here with our partnership with Advocate Healthcare. I would like to thank you all, as we greatly appreciate being a part of your journey, and hope you will forever understand the impact that each tree leaves. And we would be remiss without understanding that this program is not possible without our wonderful partners that help contribute to that mission. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Jalen, Amanda, Taylor, and Kelly, and Rebecca. We really appreciate that. As we come to the top of the hour, we'd love to hear what questions you have. So please put those in the chat or use the Q&A feature. Jalen, could you stop sharing your screen so we can see everybody here? And again, please put your questions in the chat, and I'll kick it off with, I'm looking at the list of people here and recognizing some names. We've got someone from North Carolina who works for, or South Carolina, who works for the state. I see a lot of city urban foresters, see a lot of nonprofit friends. And I hope this isn't too big, and I'm not sure who to, I'm just trying to hey, we have this issue. We work with a lot of cities of different sizes. We want to deal with trees, hazard trees on their property. How did the conversation start, Rebecca or Kelly? I'm trying, how would they even go to the first person to get that question started? Is that too big, or do you think you could say, hey, if this was me and I lived in thus and such state, here's what I would do?
I'll go ahead and answer that. I would say come to our next national meeting. We host our meetings on the last Wednesday of the month. And, you can reach out to any one of us to get emailed the link to participate, and just so that we can understand, where are you at and how do you even begin? Funding, of course, is the biggest question. We all have a desire to want to do this work. And it's not easy right now to get funding, but you would definitely be in a community with like-minded individuals, and we could, happy to brainstorm where we can to see what's possible. And I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
I mean,
Arthur,
I
yeah, go ahead.
mentioned how Treesilience specifically can't be funded through our state tax revenue, but it does sustain a lot of funding for public tree care, tree maintenance, and planting. And the reason that that was established is because the residents of the state came together and advocated and went around and gathered signatures to make a constitutional amendment to create a conservation department and then to set aside the tax revenue. So I think if you're a community person and you're seeing your state lose its federal funding and closing its forestry programs, that maybe it's time to start thinking about some serious advocacy and trying to pursue a model like that. New taxes are obviously terrifying. Nobody, it's hard to be supportive of it, but that's my tidbit.
Still. Arthur, I see your hand up. I have allowed Mike for you, so you can bring yourself off mute if you'd like to ask a question. Well, Arthur, feel free to come off mute or put your question in the chat. I was curious. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to throw something out there as far as the risk goes.
Mhm.
I am an urban forester, and I'm also a tree risk assessor qualified. So if anyone is concerned about tree risk, I would recommend that they contact a qualified track arborist, and they could do an individual report or a report for a multitude of trees.
Thanks, Arthur. Yeah, how are you working with track qualifications or certified arborists in your communities, and especially with the training with individuals? Any comment from the group on that?
Yeah, I can speak for St. Louis in that every tree that for every homeowner that wants to participate in our program, every tree is assessed for risk before we determine whether or not they're in the program. Because we've had people apply who just want a tree removed. They're just tired of their tree, and Treesilience is not supporting that. Treesilience is about creating healthy canopy. And so we look at trees that need attention. And so we do contract an arborist to go out and look at all the trees, as well as an arborist tree care company to handle the tree removals.
Thanks, Rebecca. Well, as we're coming to the top of the hour, Carla's going to drop in the CEU form into the chat. So if you're seeking ISA CEUs, that form will be in the chat and we will submit those on your behalf. I know we don't have a lot of time left. If you need to drop off the top of the hour, feel free. We might go over just a few more minutes. I was curious if you mentioned funding. This is a long time ago that I'd seen some cities that were experimenting with no cost or low cost liens against properties. And forgive me if I don't know all the ins and outs of how this works, but have you seen any innovative ways that cities might be taking this on, saying, we'll help remove this tree, we'll put this against your property with no interest on it and help remove the tree in that way? Have you seen any talks in that way, or are you still just trying to look for private funding to make this work?
Leslie, I attended a webinar a few months back, and I'm not recalling, I think it was in Wisconsin, perhaps, maybe Michigan. And there was a city, a municipality that I think did a similar model to that. And it was something that I was unfamiliar with. As a nonprofit, that's just not in our orbit or world. But, if others have ideas, we're always looking for interesting ways to think about funding sources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. That was when EAB, Emerald Ash Borer, was really hot and heavy in the news big time here in the Midwest. And that was the first time I'd heard that. And I hadn't heard it since. So I wasn't sure if cities were experimenting with that kind of model. Well, we are at the top of the hour. Really appreciate your time. This has been a wonderful way to be able to hear more about how we can engage more people in making sure our canopies are healthy, how we can think about how we remove trees that are scary, they're hazardous. We need to be thinking about how we remove those from people's property and also instill that love in keeping our urban canopy as healthy as possible. So thanks for everything you guys are doing. Thanks for everyone who joined us. It's great to see you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.